Hello, everyone. In honor of the new Shattered Grid comic book that everyone in the community is talking about, I felt I'd like to talk about it as well, specifically about one short story in the series that caught my attention. This one short story called Zordon's First Power Rangers, where we had the first female Red Ranger and the first male Pink Ranger. Personally, I'm just not a fan of a male being the Pink Ranger. It's the one costume that's designed specifically for girls. Not just the color pink, but also the soft, circular, and girly designs on the helmets. When I see a male Pink Ranger, it just looks wrong and out of place, and it just feels like they're trying to force diversity and equality into something that already has plenty of that. Also, let me warn you right now that this video has some very offensive language in it. So if you're the type to get triggered easily, then pay attention when I say this story takes place in 1969. That was 49 years ago, and the social environment in America was very, very, very different from what it is today. Even though the civil rights had happened, things didn't immediately change for black people and women in America. It still took a long, long time for things to get to where it is today, and there was still plenty of racism and sexism going on. And this short story completely ignores that. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the story. So this story takes place in 1969 during the moon landing. A woman named Grace Sterling, who somehow isn't a housewife and actually has a job at NASA, is sitting on the roof of Mission Control and staring up into the night sky with her black friend, who also somehow has a job at NASA, unless he's the janitor. By the way, black people and women didn't have jobs during that time. They were still fighting for equal rights in America. Afterwards, she's teleported to the command center with a very, very diverse group of people. Again, remember, this is 1969. First of all, there isn't even one hint of racism and discrimination. No one is wondering why there's a black guy in the room, the Yellow Ranger, or having any problem with a black guy being on the team, or even calling him a Negro or anything like that. The British woman, the Black Ranger, called the Russian guy, the Blue Ranger, a commie nut, and nothing happens. You'd think he'd put his hands on her and slap her or something. I mean, that's how things worked back then. If a woman insulted a man, she would get hurt. Now, I'm not trying to advocate violence against women here, but this was a hardship that women had to deal with back then. Then, when they morph, the male Pink Ranger just says, "Really? I'm pink?" and then just accepts it. This shouldn't have happened. He should have gotten angry, taken off the helmet, and said a bunch of homophobic remarks like, "Hey, I'm not a faggot," or "Do I look gay to you?" and refused the power. Because, again, people, this was 1969. Also, when they morph, we see that Grace is the Red Ranger. Tell me, do you really think any of these guys would be okay with a woman leading their team? One of them would have pushed her aside and made himself the leader. Remember, this was the 60s. If this was supposed to be a mature storyline that even talks about the inequality in America during that time, then they can't avoid historical facts like this. And then finally, when they're on the moon, they fight Psycho Green. This just screams fan service. The writers couldn't come up with anything intelligent, so they just threw in a Psycho Ranger and colored him green because the fans love the Psycho Rangers. The Psycho Rangers were created by astronomers specifically to fight the Space Rangers. And if this is supposed to follow the main Power Rangers timeline, then the Psycho Rangers are not supposed to exist until 1998. Why is there a green Psycho Ranger? Who made it? What the hell is it doing on the moon decades before the Psycho Rangers ever existed? Is this just another alternate dimension that's somehow connected to the main Power Ranger universe just for the sake of fan service? If so, then you might as well just call this Power Rangers multiverse theory. If you're gonna do fan service, then do it right. Don't just throw in any random character from any random time period and expect it to somehow work. Instead of a Psycho Ranger, why not just use someone like Goldar or Lord Zed? That would be a better antagonist and make more sense for a story like this that was set in the past rather than some random Psycho Ranger.